5th of December, welcome back to Making Sense of It All. Are we recovering from the Black Friday hangover? How's the credit card statements looking? Mine, Francis Hood, great, because I got a great deal. I'm glad you asked. I got a great deal. I managed to get 2 extra large cappuccinos for the price of 1. That was how much I splurged for Black Friday.
Was that a Black Friday special?
It was actually 2 for 1.
Really?
And my wife thought I was cheap, and she was right. That's why she got the nice big one as well. The numbers, though, I mean, I try not to use credit cards for anything if I can avoid it. The numbers that we have. Can I shock you before I ask you what you bought?
Yes.
So this is according to APSA, by the way. APSA, by midday on Black Friday. So we're not even through the whole day yet. It's midday on Black Friday. APSA put out a report that somebody had spent over 1 million South African rands on a car rental. Now,
so not a car.
No, you're not buying the car.
A car rental.
So I went to go quickly look up.
For how long? How long
for
are
a
you
month.
renting this
I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
Because I was like, R1,000,000 for a car rental. Where are you going?
So what do you get for
it's a high-end supercar. I know the brand. I'm not going to mention it. I'm going to just say it's worth it. I would love one, but I'm not going to pay R1,000,000 to rent it for a month. That is one transaction as well. So it's not a car getting you to the airport, but they get to keep it for a month. R1,000,000, over R1,000,000.
Okay, I don't know if I can top that, but I can give you some tidbits from Standard Bank. And I love it that the banks are giving us a bit of detail. They don't tell us who bought what, but highest spend on a credit card, 864K on home furnishings.
That was
and
my
that
wife.
makes sense. I mean, you can do that very easily. Very easily.
What bank was that?
Standard Bank.
That's my wife's credit card.
Highest international spend, 734,000 on hotels and lodging. So that makes sense. Jewellery, one customer spent 442,000 locally. I think my husband should learn from that customer. And beautiful tidbits. So Gareth, I'm looking at this because I'm on the business desk, and remember we had that discussion, is shopping good? By the way, I affirmed my view that shopping really is good.
I didn't feel I had to convince you for that.
Yeah, it's an engine of our economy, and it's a good sign as long as people aren't spending recklessly and there's sort of debt out of control. In this case, some of the banks are even saying they think people were responsible. I don't know how they know, but obviously they can track that sort of thing. But we're seeing the volumes going up.
Yes.
Online is interesting, and it's all signs of an economy where the wheels are turning.
Speaking of wheels and turning of things, I've actually got some stats here as well. I think this is also from APSA, if I'm not mistaken, the same report, on what people are spending on, what sectors they're spending on. And you mentioned wheels turning. So travel relations and tour operators, airlines and car rentals up 25% compared to Black Friday 2024. Then e-commerce, marketplaces like Amazon and Takealot, up tenfold from 2024. Children and toddlers, this was amazing. Children and toddlers goods up 80% compared to 2024. And then
Children
the nerds,
are demanding these
they're very
days.
demanding. What credit cards are they running around with? And then electronics and appliances up 6.6%. Based on a year ago as well. So you're right, just across the board.
Which is very interesting because on the day we sent reporters out and we were all out and about. If you go to the shops, you see what's happening. Somebody told me in Cape Town, the shops seemed empty. So we thought, okay, what's going on here? But the predictions were that a lot of South Africans are going to buy online. The other thing that shifted is that it's become a whole month. Essentially, a lot of the deals are being offered for Black November rather than just the day. But I don't know if you have stats on online spend, but Standard Bank saying the online spend volumes grew by 75%, contributing to 23% of total volumes. So basically a fourth of what is being bought is being bought online. And that's interesting.
It is interesting because I've also got a stat from Discovery. We're stats today, by the way. We're doing our stats. We've done our homework on this one. Discovery Bank coming out, the average spend in store, so a good old brick and mortar store. Remember the old days? You used to take your wallet and little plastic thing, credit card?
Yeah,
you don't tap anymore with your phone?
Yeah.
Remember those days? That's what people are doing. And the average spend, according to Discovery, this is obviously off the back of their cards, is 455 Rand. 455 Rand. So I think people conservatively or more conservative when they go into a store. And I can't help but wonder if there's something about seeing it and holding it in your hand and taking a credit card out. It's something so visceral about you spending your money as opposed to going tap, tap, tap on a phone.
Unless you have a situation where the people who have a lot of money to spend are choosing not to go into the shops.
They don't need to.
And they don't need to, and maybe the essentials and the things that are on offer are less important. But what is important to them is the big ticket items that you can save on, like jewellery for 2 million and then you buy it for 800K,
Sure.
things like that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we're seeing. There is a prediction from Worldwide Works that by January, 10% of all retail will be online. So I remember a few years ago we were saying, when will South Africans sort of cotton on to the online spending?
Yeah.
It is happening.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe slower than in some parts of the world, but it is happening.
I'm curious. This is more of a predictive idea, and maybe something we need an oracle for. How much of the shopping do you think was actually for Christmas? If we saw such a jump from 2024 and now with this online boom at the moment and the numbers we saw here, I can't help but think a lot of people were getting in early for Christmas. What I'm wondering is how that might affect Christmas shopping.
So remember we were discussing, it could affect Christmas shopping adversely, which used to be the big boon for South African retailers. But now we're basically seeing this period, experts are saying, we're seeing a longer shopping period from November to the end of December. If you're responsible, if you're clever, you do your Christmas shopping. I actually did some.
Yeah.
I felt very proud of myself.
And you really got it packed away?
I'm trying to wrap
There's still
it.
going to be last
There's a
minute
Dalmatian
shopping.
puppy involved. It's very difficult to wrap.
You bought a
presents.
Dalmatian puppy?
That was last Christmas.
Oh.
But that is the Christmas present that keeps on giving and
Yes,
makes
it
it
does.
difficult to do anything. But I did. And Gareth, just to let you know, before this, if I bring it back to the economy and retail as a sign of the strength of the economy, something of an engine and creating jobs, there were good signs in the run-up to this. So a report has come out, which is great for Q3, a growth in retail spending. So overall, so it's all adding up that this is an economy where there's a bit more traction. And in that report, what was really interesting is that smartphones are becoming less popular. And I was wondering what on earth is going on? Maybe we are all not so obsessed with getting the latest
I suppose
one because the one that we use works.
It's
I don't
fine.
know.
Because I think mine, the one I've got, is about 3 years old, and my wife's got one of the newer ones, and honestly, I can't tell the difference between them, really.
They're so good now.
Yeah.
So I've always been a bit behind the curve. I don't go and stand in lines to get the latest Apple, but maybe that is a trend.
Maybe that
An
is a
interesting
trend.
one to watch for the smartphone makers.
Another one I want to watch just before we change track, and I use that word very specifically, and you'll understand now in a moment why. I'm curious to see what the debt levels are going to be off the back of Black Friday with organizations like Debt Busters, Debt Review. And you made your point earlier, and I hope that is the case, that yes, it's great for the e-commerce sector, but I also really hope that people have been responsible and haven't overburdened themselves with revolving loans and all these sort of things.
I hope so too, because South Africa is a hugely indebted nation. And debt can be a black hole. And like we were discussing, you can land up spending more on things. You can have huge problems in January.
January.
One of the banks, and I can't remember which one it was, but said that said that they did notice responsible spending. Let's hope.
Well, that's R1 million to hire a car for a month. It's apparently responsible, depending on who it is exactly you're talking to. Can we quickly?
I'm dying to know what the car is.
I'm also dying to know what the car is. Imagine, would you buy any?
Did they give the make, model, nothing like that?
Would you rent any car for R1 million for a month?
I'm not in a position to, unfortunately.
No.
I wish I was.
So the hired car, he's talking about responsible spending. I suppose it depends on your personal levels, what responsible spending actually means for you.
As long as you're not doing it on debt.
As long as you're not doing it on debt.
As long as you're not bringing out your credit card for that R1 million rental.
Imagine explaining that to your wife when she gets the card statement at the end of the month. All right, can we change track very quickly? Because I need to talk about another big story, which I'm hoping, Francis, is going to do us the world of good when it comes to our railway networks, which have been devastated over the years, and is finally some private movement here.
This story inspired me this week. Traxtian is the company's name. It is a freight company that is investing 3.4 billion rand to put trains and wagons on our tracks. Now, this is part of government's push to invite the private sector. And how I understand it is basically there are certain tracks, and these can now be rented out at certain times of the day by private companies. So suddenly you have this capacity to use all of our rail effectively, wonderfully, because, like you said, it's been in decline for years and years and years. And initially, there was a false start to this. Transnet had some ideas of how this would work. The private sector was like, no, because if you're going to put down 3.4 billion, you want a long-term lease, you want certain guarantees. There's been a whole issue of who will fix the tracks, who will take care of the tracks. Is it Transnet or is it these rentors? But it's happening. And this is the first significant investment. And hopefully this will kick off a boom in our rail again.
Any idea on timelines, when this might be?
So I spoke to the CEO, and what was really interesting is he said that they are the biggest private freight company on the African continent, and they have never had trains in South Africa. Obviously, we had this monopoly by Transnet, right? And the tracks weren't open. So this is very exciting that a South African company that has operated across Africa can now invest in South Africa. And he was saying in 12 months, the train should be there and the train should be moving, and it's happening.
I didn't get a chance to read the article. Is this for freight? Is this for passenger? Is it a combination?
Freight.
Okay.
Freight. So he was explaining passenger rail a little bit more complicated, and they do freight. So this will be certain lines. Think of a line Joburg to Pretoria. You've got certain daytime
slots.
Yeah. Slots is the word I was looking for. So they will take up certain slots.
And it's also good news, I imagine, for the agriculture sector as well, because how many times have we heard complaints from the agricultural sector that they can't get produce down to the harbours because there's issues with the trains? Then you have the issues at the harbours, and at least this is one big way, potentially, if that's how they go and do this, that they could capitalise, because there is a need and there is a market. Hopefully these trains can just start delivering that need.
The market is huge, and you're right, because at certain points, we were talking about how much the exporters were losing. If you're in agriculture and you can't get your produce to the port, that's a tragedy. If you're stuck at the port because there's inefficiencies and something doesn't work and your produce goes off, that is another tragedy. The minerals, the miners were also losing out on billions and billions when the prices were good, because they just couldn't get it out of the country quick enough. So hopefully this is the start of a new efficiency. And this is one of the things that people have been talking about. The green shoots we need, the structural reforms, however you look at it, to move to a higher level. This economy needs a transport and logistics network that works. Do you remember, by the way, when we had shanty towns, informal settlements on tracks?
Yes.
And they were left there. So we had an issue for years. Yeah, we had an issue for years and years. And I'm fascinated. I always wonder if there was a political reason behind that. Do you remember, I think it was the DA in the Cape that got a lot of bad publicity for when the equivalent of the Joburg Red Ants moved in and people were taken out of their homes, and these are vulnerable people. And it almost felt like we were just allowing things like that to happen. But these are South Africa's rail tracks. Transnet still struggling with sabotage, by the way, spending a fortune. I spoke to the Transnet CEO, which was wonderful, at the mining in Durban, because you never get to speak to her. And I can't remember the figure, but it was staggering on how much they're still spending on security. But it is happening.
It is happening. So great news, as you say, for agriculture and all those reasons, and ports, etc. But I can't help but think there's going to be, in the build-up to this, Francis, there's going to be a few of the conspiracy theorists coming out of the woodwork and could start suggesting that the reason we've seen the downfall and the decay of our rail network was to eventually get a private player into this. And there was sabotage, which forced a private player to now come in. I know it's a bit out there, but it wouldn't be the first time I've heard that argument.
No, and I've heard it from politicians in relation to Eskom. There are some people who are, for various reasons, opposed to privatization. They don't like privatization, and the idea is that the state should be strong and the state should be taking care of its citizens. I don't believe that theory at all. We have a country where there's poverty, where there's been lawlessness, and I think whatever has been stolen from the tracks is valuable. I probably don't know enough, but it's been a target for saboteurs, and that is just the situation. This isn't full privatization, by the way. Transnet will always own the tracks, essentially. It's like you owning a house and then renting out certain rooms. You are the owner. And the explanation from government was the same with Eskom. Eskom will control, ultimately, the lines, and then everybody can feed their private generated power onto the lines. And I think a beautiful example from history is Telkom. Remember, Telkom had the monopoly, and we all complained about our phone lines. Then Telkom moved, and by the way, it listed, government was still involved, but private players got involved, and it listed on the JSE, and it did wonderfully well. And Telkom dealt with the back end so that everybody else could play, but use Telkom as the back end. And Transnet is still going to be the ultimate boss of the rail lines.
So we do have good examples of how it can work, and I hope it's the case here. Just as I move over to the last story, it actually links in nicely, because one other element to this rail story, and I've spoken to the AA over the years, you speak to the various trucking organizations, it would also potentially mean safer roads as well, because we won't have as many trucks on the road. Now, from a business perspective, I'd like to get the views of the trucking companies, but as a motorist in South Africa, have you tried to travel down to Durban with all the trucks? I'm using that as an example. I do think, and the number of accidents we've seen with overloaded trucks, the roads being too busy, I can't help but think this actually might be a good thing as well for that.
It is a wonderful thing. You're exactly right, because the problem is with rail in decline, the volumes were down and freight had to move. So everybody moved onto the roads, and you have these big trucks on roads not designed to take
it's damaging the roads as well.
Damaging the roads. And like you say, it's raised huge safety concerns, and it just wasn't as efficient. If you load a huge train, just think of all the wagons you add, the locomotives, I can't remember what the sections are called, and you just load it up with freight. It's so efficient. Yes, and it takes all of that off the road. So we almost need to reverse the damage that has been done.
It's actually a nice way of saying it, reverse it. Now, I mentioned Durban and December holidays and how busy the roads get. I have another conspiracy theory, but this is a Gareth one. Why do they always like to push up the fuel price just before we all go on long trips? Is it just me?
It's just the Grinch called petrol prices. Petrol prices went up, but they're not looking too bad. It hasn't been too bad this year. It is confusing though, because the rand has been strong.
Yes.
And oil prices, we import oil. Sasol makes some fuel, but basically we don't make much of our own fuel. It comes from overseas, Brent crude oil. And that's been down. So why is our petrol going up? And it's all about the refineries. There's a bit of a shortage of refined or finished product fuel that we now have to import, and it's become more difficult and more expensive, which has raised issues. We spoke in the number of the week of the day this week about our refineries. We need to have our own capacity to make that finished product in South Africa.
And as we know, until we get that, so it's always going to be the end user that's going to get hammered each and every single time. I'm just thinking, as a diesel driver, I'm going to start paying, 80 cents more odd per litre?
Yeah, I think it was between 60-something
we're on the higher end of it, aren't we?
Too. So as a diesel driver, I'm sorry, you're hit much worse than us petrol users, because that only went up by 29 cents, if I stand to be corrected. But a diesel, much more significant. And that speaks to the trucks.
Exactly,
right?
That's right.
So that could be passed on to the end user as well. So hopefully this refinery issue will be resolved, but there's a huge call, and government has been speaking about it, and we'll see what happens for a mega refinery in South Africa that churns out barrels and barrels of refined fuel, which makes us more secure, right? You don't want to have a problem in the world and South Africa is not fuel secure. Yeah.
Down here in the south. All right, that's where we're going to leave it for this week, making sense of it all, and I hope it has as well. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.